Welcome to your iconic image. If you want to take control of your image and be a power player in your space, then this is the show for you. Here we will arm you with tools and information to help you grow your brand on purpose. I'm your host, Marlana Semenza, photographer and visual strategist. Now let's dive into today's episode. Rafat Fields is an international brand strategist and sales performance coach. As founder of Power to Rise Consulting, she empowers corporate professionals to convert their relationships to revenue. Welcome, Rafat.
Thank you so much for allowing me to spend time with you today.
So let's talk about this. And let's start by saying, what's the difference between a professional brand and a personal brand?
Ooh, that's a great question. And the answer is always there's not a 100% rule. But generally, when people ask me the difference, I look at it this way. Your personal brand is who you are. It is a physical representation of the values and the things you believe in, the day-to-day of your life represented outwardly to the world. A corporate brand is far more about the company or the product. Just like every company has a set of mission statement, vision statement, core values, so should every human being. And you really want to have clear definition between the two and where they overlap.
Is it important for them to overlap?
In my personal opinion, I think the answer to that question is yes. And here's why. When we are in alignment with our values, we do our best work. Our relationships are the most authentic, and the process of forming deeper connection is as seamless as it can be. There are always going to be human factors to overcome. When you are out of alignment with your values, it can be done, but it's very important to understand the boundaries because you're going to have to work a lot harder at having productive relationships in those scenarios.
So then how do we merge the two?
At the core root of it all, I think it's about living a shared story. I think, we all have a very unique and specific mission that we are sent here to accomplish, whether it's as a person or as a company, right? When you form a company, it usually has its own mission and purpose. So the best thing to do is to figure out what is the separation of each person's unique mission and how can you blend it together to tell a cohesive story that empowers and uplifts everyone on their own journey and builds camaraderie and synergy individually and collectively.
So I actually have a couple of questions. The first one is, let me start here. So if you are an employee, how important is it for you to have your own personal brand as well?
I think that every person should be building their own brand. And here's why. Influence is really the new currency. And in anything you do, whether you're going in to be a corporate employee for the duration of your career, or you have an aspiration to do work outside of your role, it could be something like a community building project, church mission, it could be a variety of different things. But to the degree that you have your own platform, is the degree that you will be able to generate and create your own influence. And influence is something that is really a two-way currency. It helps advance your initiatives and purposes, but it's also a valuable asset to the company that you work for when you find a way to share a story together.
So let's say we're a solopreneur. How much separation should there be between our personal brand and our business brand if we're it?
I think in the case of a solopreneur, it's so much simpler. Now, there is a scenario where this could deviate, and I'll get to that in just a moment. But really, you are the brand. Live your brand. I think so many people think that personal brand strategy is about creating something that doesn't exist, when really it's about getting to the root of what makes you you, what makes you go, and bringing that to the surface for the world to see. The strategy comes into play where we are creating opportunities to get it pushed out through more channels to make it easier to find you. Now, the slight deviation from this is if you're looking to build a company where you have others who are going to assume a role alongside you, then you get to be a little bit more strategic in how tightly you wind your personal brand around the company's brand. But while it's just you, and until you break through that wall and become known, you should be the face of the brand. People connect best with people, not products and not things.
So that being the case, should we, when we are building something, should we be leading with our personal brand or leading with our business brand?
Usually the simplest way I can explain this is if you lead with your human, the person you serve, and start with the why, that's going to be the simplest entry point. Because then it's about telling the story and illustrating the case that allows them to latch on to why you are of service and of value. Then it really depends on the scenario. There are going to be times where once you address the hook of why, you can come in with the product. But I'm going to tell you 99% of the time, it's a human connection point that really advances the relationship. And it's going to be you either telling your story or telling the story of a client that you've helped to serve through what you do. So I think either way, you're squarely in the space of your personal brand.
Yeah. So what if we start off as a solopreneur, we build this empire, and now we want to go and do something else? Is it difficult to peel our personal brand away from this company that we have, fostered, and or is there a way to do it and not to do it? Is it something that has to be done in a process? Does it really not matter?
I would say that if you can give yourself a transition point, that is going to be your best case scenario. I would not look to be able to flip a switch and completely make the cut over like in 60 days. I like to say, give it a year at minimum. Ideally, 2 might be a really sound place if you're looking at best case leadership transition models. But the answer is for whatever window you have, plan ahead. A solution can be deployed. It's just a question of, how much preparation does your audience need? Do you have an audience that is slow to change or quick to adapt? Really, that's the root of it all.
So let's address people for a minute who think, well, I don't want to get too personal with my business. How much personal do we need to share in a personal brand?
Great question. I love this one quite a bit because this is where I champion the customer. And I say, get deep into the details of what does it take to affect change and transformation in your customer's life? Where are the places that you serve them? And I have to tell you, for the vast majority of businesses, the thing that you do or the product that you sell is a small component of the process. We in our minds think that the thing is the thing. And then when you go in and do customer feedback, customer research, and you understand, why they're doing business with you, why do they continue to grow and develop the relationship, there's almost always a component of mindset, experience, relationship. There's something else beside the thing, right? And so when it comes to points of vulnerability, it's how closely connected do you want your customer to be with you? How great of a barrier do you want to create in terms of transitioning over to someone else? So you can absolutely build great customer relationships without vulnerability. I would I would challenge that you are not doing your customer the best service because you're limiting the depth of your relationship.
Mm. And I think that's important to point out too, that most personal brands are built obviously online, because people see us and meet us virtually before they ever meet us in person. Sometimes they never meet us in person. And so breaking down those barriers to getting somebody to say yes, or what would it take for somebody to want to work with you, I think is a really important thing to recognize.
Absolutely.
So then how do we, if we are an employee, let's go back to being,
Sure.
staff again, how do we take our personal brand and leverage it for business, for opportunities? And I guess that could even apply if we are the business owner. How do we leverage it?
So there's a variety of different ways. One is to think through what are the unique challenges in your business or your company that you are well positioned to serve. So one of my favorite leaders of all time is Indra Nooyi, and she's the former chairman of PepsiCo. And she describes this as a hip pocket skill. And it's like whenever this specific type of challenge came up, leaders would say, "Oh, we've got to call Indra. Like, we got to pick up the phone. We got to get her on the case. She's got to be the one we go to." So in your own company, within your own industry, what is that thing that you bring an unprecedented amount of subject matter expertise to the table, that they know that when they put you on it, the solution is going to be the best available to them at all times? So
Mm.
it starts with deeply understanding what that problem is going to be. And then it's about cultivating the relationships and building that wealth of knowledge and getting it out into the industry in your own voice so that that builds a sphere of influence around you. Now, here's the trick to it. When you are sharing information out into the industry and into the marketplace, also remember, what is the lens of your company? What is your company's mission? What is your company's purpose? When you can have both your subject matter expertise and your individual mission alongside what your company's mission is, this is what puts the frame around your content strategy and ultimately how you communicate the message outwardly to everyone else. When you can marry the two, not only are you building your own brand, you're building your company's brand too.
Mm. So interesting. And also in there is worth noting, because I hear you keep saying, knowing your customer, talking to your customer. And I think it's a misconception that a lot of people have, that your personal brand is about you, and it's really not about you.
Yes, that is so true. It's what you can do for them, what your experiences can do for them that matters most.
So are there mistakes that you see people make?
Yes. Yes, there are. And I mean, it really is a setup to what you just mentioned. It's, a very me focused message, right? It's yes, we want your story and the insight it provides to others who are going to leverage it as an example of how they can create impact in their own journey. It's about being a connector too, like facilitating relationships that are two-way, not just to your own benefit, but in a way that uplifts and builds momentum for everyone around you.
Mm. What about people that are uncomfortable being the face of their brand?
Here's what. Here's what, the way that the marketplace is really going, if you look at the trends, if you study the data, customers have done roughly 60% of their research online before they ever reach out to a sales professional to complete the process. Here's the question. When a customer is entering a consideration period, what are they going to find about your company and your products? Because here's another deal breaker. People are moving away from investing in a company brand. They connect so much better with a person. And so CEOs that have active and robust social media profiles, you can see a correlation in the data for their sales revenue and growth projections, right? So the more that your executive leadership and you as a solopreneur, this applies to you as well. The more you get out in front of your company brand and be that human being that people can connect with first and foremost, the better your chances of facilitating and closing sales.
Mm. And, even when you think about it, think about really big companies like Apple. Apple was synonymous with Steve Jobs. And, Microsoft was synonymous for a long time with Bill Gates. But when Bill Gates left Microsoft, his influence didn't stay with Microsoft because he had that personal brand. So he took that influence with him into other avenues.
Yes. And there's so many examples. Sir Richard Branson is another great example. There's so many. Absolutely.
So let's say we don't have a clear presence and our brand isn't really defined. How can we start to take steps to do that?
Yes. So this is where you once you start looking for it intentionally, you'll notice different cues. One of the biggest things I say, start paying attention to what people ask you questions about. Often the things that people come to you for over and over and over again are a signal of one of your areas of strength. Another thing is, where are the places in your day where the work does not feel like work? Because when you are working in alignment with your superpowers, that energy really propels you forward in a way where you don't notice the passage of time. So like those are really good places to source just some keen awareness around what could the uniqueness I bring to this organization, to this company, to the people I serve, what could that be? And once you figure that out, I often say it's actually simpler to start with the person, the type of human that you are uniquely gifted to serve, or you're most passionate about serving, and then figuring out what are the things that they struggle with that you could help. Like, where could you be an aspirin in their day?
Love that. So let's say we start to build our brand. How perfect do we have to be? Can we show flaws? Is it important to show flaws, especially as a corporation or a business?
Oh, please show your flaws. Nobody likes perfect people. There's just something really ingenuine about it. And people can sense when you're being authentic. And it's so off-putting and repelling. The best and most sustainable personal brands are those that are very flawed. They're honest and they're open in their approach. Who does not know who Gary Vee is? If you're in the world of online marketing, right? Everybody, he's like the godfather of personal branding. And what I love about him is that he makes no apologies for who he is, where his flaws lay. He is unapologetically him at all times. And he speaks on stages with the largest corporations all the way down to, the millennials, right? So he finds a way to make it work. And I think that is a shining example of when you are just you own who you are and what you bring to the table, the opportunities will unfold and people will either accept you or not.
So with Gary Vee, he does speak to a wide variety of people and connects with a wide variety of people. For us, if we are starting out, should we be targeting one specific group, or should we just be showing who we are and hope that the right people attract to us, or what's the combination there?
Okay, so this is a good question because there's multiple reasons in which you would build a personal brand strategy. So if you're looking to sell a product, good, or service, it's a very commerce driven business model. The thing you want to do is get super tight, super focused on the person you serve. And we say when you are building your communication plan, your content strategy, you speak to the one person, right? The one person story that represents the client you serve. Now, there's another type of model of building a personal brand, which is far more of I'm going to bring you on the journey. I'm going to share this experience, my experience of moving through the world, what I learn, who I encounter, what I discover. In that type of business model, you're still speaking to the one, but it's a far more broader context of you're not taking people through the process with the intent of pulling through a sale or pulling through the relationship to a company brand per se. You're more building a following. And, in that case, you have different considerations that come behind managing the platform overall. But it's just a completely different consideration set.
Is one more effective than the other?
They are equally effective. My opinion on this is that it's far faster to monetize a personal brand that points to a product, good, or service. Mm-hmm. So in that case, if short-term income potential is a significant factor for you, then you're going to want to go to that model. You can still monetize and do quite well on the I'm going to invite you into my journey type of experience, but it's a far longer ramp up till you get to a certain size of a platform.
So what would you say to people who are currently on the fence of, I don't know about building a personal brand. I'm just going to build my company and that's going to be that?
I would say you have a personal brand, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. The only question is, are you being intentional about telling your own story, or are you allowing others to tell it for you? And so I personally encourage every person, really, even as early as high school, even, you should be very intentional. If you have a Facebook account, if you have an Instagram account, you have a personal brand and you're basically running a media company. What you put on your page is your content strategy. So think carefully about what you're showing to the world. And if you're in business, it's all the more important to think through. Remember, your customers are going to do research on you. A little Google search will pop up a lot of things. So what do you want them to find when they put your name in the Google search bar?
Love it. Okay, Rafat. Just 4 last questions because you gave us a lot of great stuff here. What's the best piece of advice you ever given?
Oh, own your story. Hold the red pen, edit ruthlessly, and don't be afraid of adding in frequent plot twists.
Love that. Share with us one thing on your bucket list.
So for those who don't know, I am a competitive Olympic weightlifter. And one of the things that I really want to do is to enter an international competition and represent the USA Masters level weightlifting team.
Wonderful. And when the toy companies get around to making an action figure of you, what 2 accessories will it come with?
A sword and a shield, for sure.
And last one, Rafat, how do people find you?
You can find me at my name on many social media profiles, basically all of them, but I highly encourage you to start with Instagram. So at Rafat Fields.
And she's on all these because she's got a personal brand with a company. Just saying.
Pick the one you love the most.
Thank you so very much for being here, Rafat.
No, thank you again for having me. Such a joy.
Thank you for joining us. Once again, I'm Marlana Semenza, photographer and visual strategist. Please comment, like, or share this episode, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss a thing. For more information on how I can help you create your iconic image, visit marlanasemenza.com.